I've shown you on 2 occasions at this point how making certain decisions with Fallout 4 story will make it so you enter into a totally modified game state, yet a still very playable game. If you want to find out what happens if you just take down every faction right away in Fallout 4, or just ignore the Minutemen entirely, you can check those out in the little eye or at the end of this video. But this time around, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Not totally pertinent to Fallout 4 story, but what happens if you never take a perk? As the game begins, rather than trying to spec out your character or plan out some of your builds, you just start playing, going to some of the major locations, taking down enemies, and doing quests. Will you be able to finish the story? Will you be able to easily sweep through enemies like you normally can in Fallout 4's default modes? Well, all of that and more is something we're going to explore in this video. The idea behind this video was actually suggested by one of you, so if you have a different suggestion or want to see a new altered state in Fallout 4 video, comment something down below and I'll make sure to check it out. So not taking perks in Fallout 4 isn't really as complicated as some of these other videos. You pretty much just don't have to do anything. Just never hit tab and then T, at least on PC. Obviously at the early levels of the game, things are pretty standard. It doesn't honestly feel all that different. For the sake of this video, I'm playing on normal to try and just gauge how the game would feel. There's no other damage modifier mods or anything like that. But as you start to level up and actually progress, you're going to realize something very quickly. The game is far more difficult without perks. Maybe that's a little obvious to some of you, but I bet some of you don't actually realize how difficult the game gets. But in this particular case, rather than Fallout 4 getting easier as you progress, it actually gets harder. As most of you guys know, in Fallout 4, enemies scale to your level, that impacting how much health they have, what kind of armor they're wearing, but also what kind of equipment they're spawning with. Typically in Fallout 4, by level like 30, you typically have a really good gun that you did upgrade, and maybe a few damage perks to actually make it so that gun deals more damage also. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore, and even though your enemies will continue to get stronger, you yourself really won't. One thing I noticed myself doing, especially as I leveled up, was looting weapons off of enemies. In my typical playthroughs, I'll find a gun I like and then go to a weapon station and upgrade it. Obviously now, since I can't take the gun nut perk, I don't really have access to those upgrades in the traditional fashion of crafting. So now, in order to actually get some of those stronger weapons, you're going to have to find them on other enemies or NPCs in general. This totally changed my dynamic of the game, and I found myself comparing stats way more often than just trying to find the appropriate amount of junk, or even using traders to buy some of their more expensive and legendary weapons was invaluable. I found myself taking up way more of a run and gun playstyle than I traditionally did in Fallout 4 because I kind of had to run. A lot of times the enemies would kill me if I stuck around for too long. Something else that proves invaluable with this kind of playstyle is companions, because of the perks that they actually come with. This has 2 effects. First and foremost, depending on which companion you do get, like Kate in my case, she can actually lockpick higher level locks than I ever will be. With no perks, you can only hack Novus terminals as well as lockpick Novus doors. Kate allows you to get access to some higher tier things, but in addition, if you actually get enough affinity with that companion, you can get the perk. So even though I'm not selecting a perk, you are getting one and the benefits of it. And honestly, more so than anything else, playing Fallout 4 this way almost made me feel like a normal guy. Like I was just one of these settlers walking around, and when I get ambushed by a bunch of raiders, it sucks. Like it's really hard to kill all of them because I do barely any damage. While playing in this manner though, I found that VATS was invaluable. I was always entering into VATS and actually going for critical hits because it was one of the few edges you actually had over the enemies. But as you got higher and higher tier weapons, VATS kind of became less and less useful because it would use more of your AP and you just had more enemies all around. But just in general, I found myself going to VATS way more than I do in a typical playthrough. As far as the story goes, things were a bit more difficult, but I never really had a problem progressing through any quests. Typically on some of the later quests especially, or some of these side quests, you'll have different options opened up through either charisma or lockpicking the correct door. Obviously, depending on which companion you do have, you can get access to certain things like lockpicking. With this kind of build, you'll never pass a speech check in Fallout 4, well, like ever. And although yes, I was always able to complete every single quest in Fallout 4, it certainly was more difficult, and I felt like all the quests in general just took a lot longer. Combat was a bit slower, and you didn't really just have those shortcuts that were previously afforded to you. Although you still can build at settlements and create little shacks, recruit settlers, you can't actually have any shops there, and a lot of the default benefits of settlements are now gone. They will serve as safe havens, but you don't have supply lines any longer because of the lack of the local leader perk, and again, and in addition, you can actually create stores at your settlements. All in all, after dumping a few hours into Fallout 4 without perks, it was a very different experience and something I would honestly recommend giving a go, but only those of you who are looking for something that is truly challenging. Let's say you've done survival, you've done a bunch of the hard mods out there right now, try no perks, just on the normal difficulty. You'll quickly realize you put a lot of value into other things, and a lot more of your success in the game relies on you, not your character build. Having quick reaction times, actually being able to land headshots outside of VATS, and being able to go into an area, loot it quickly, and still get out in time while not dying or taking too much damage is going to prove invaluable. Yes, you can still beat the game this way, and it is honestly, again, a ton of fun to play, but it's also very frustrating at certain points. Either way, it's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.